Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Show Up Fitness Podcast. Today we have this big hunk over here, Dr. Arash from the Prehab guys. Thank you for showing up.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. Always
We're
a pleasure.
we're like twins. I got my Show Up shirt on, my hat. Look at you.
Yeah, representing. You
Mhm.
have to.
I
Yeah.
will say that we had a great workout the other day. We were benching at Equinox, and all the followers and listeners, they want to know, what is your current stack? Because you have to be on something because you're benching more than me.
No, not taking any. I mean, I'm following your inspiration, if anything, Chris.
Isn't it funny how bros do that though? It's like when someone's stronger than you, you're always like, I wonder what he's taking because it has to be something. It's the ego,
Well, no,
right?
it's my short arms. If I had arms as long as yours, I'd be benching less.
What would you do if we went to Equinox and I said, you know what, let's get on the stability ball and do some presses, a squat curl press on a Bosu ball. What would you do, Doc?
That's actually the secret is doing all that on a Bosu ball. I should have mentioned. I didn't want to reveal that secret to you, but now that you bring it up, that's how you build all the strength in the world. No.
Today I wanted to pick your brain and talk a little bit about a case example I have with a client. And I want to see if I navigated this correctly. I try my best to stay in my lane, and I'm very fortunate to have great people like yourself and Mike and Craig and Dr. Waterbury, people I can reach out to. And for when it comes to our clients, a lot of times they're going to have issues. Oh, this, happened over the weekend, or I went to this class and something happened. I can work a lot with my clients, except when it comes to, I'd say, any type of numbness, shooting pain, or if I just don't know, I just say, you know what, I can figure that out for you. And I've done it before. I'll take a picture of a client, I'll send you a text message. Usually don't respond until after like 11 or 12 because you sleep in until freaking ever. What is it with you? No early birds over there, huh?
Oh no, at least for me, I'm a night owl. Yeah, the
Mike and
exact
Craig, are
opposite.
they?
Craig is more morning. I think Mike is more morning. I'm the exception. I think that's just where I get my alone time, and that's where I go in with getting my stuff done.
That's the beauty of it, is you find where you can optimize your work, and then you get it done. There's no superiority of early or night. It's just get your shit done, right?
As long as I got focused time with no distractions at any point, that's what matters most for a lot of the tasks I need to do.
So I got this client. She's a rock star. She was a swimmer at Georgetown. She's in the corporate world now, and we've been training her for a while. I met her at my local watering hole, the Fig. I always tell people, they think I'm an alcoholic, but I think, you got to go to places where your potential clients are going to be. And
Yeah.
just, before I had this call with you today, I was having breakfast at the Fig, and Arnold's over there with his buddy. It's like, I like to go to places where your clients are going to be socializing, because depending on your market and what you're trying to accomplish, you need to be in that area as much as possible. So we met one night, and she was working with a trainer at Equinox. He had her doing some, actually, let's not say Equinox, let's say a big box gym. And he had her doing some front squats into some power cleans. And I was like, wow, okay. And she got a little jacked up, and so she ended up coming over working with us a little bit. But training with her, she would experience some discomfort in her lower back region, and she wouldn't say like it's the whole low back. It would be specific to one side. She would take her thumb and point right to about, a little below her last rib. And so my mind goes, I don't say this to her because I'm not a therapist. I don't say like, oh, you have this, let me fix you. I just go, all right, well, where she's pointing sounds like it might be the QL, Quadratus Lumborum. So let's see what irritates it. And certain things that she would do when we would do planks, and then she would rotate, that would irritate her. I said, okay, that's good. Gathering data when she would do like trap bar deadlifts, it would irritate her a little bit. So I'm thinking, oh, it could be extension. And then when we would do side bends on the left side, no pain. Right side, it was always that guard where she would go kind of slow, and she'd be like, no, it's okay. I said, no, it's not okay. Does your nose hurt right now? And she goes, no. Then does your low back hurt right now? And you go, a little. No, it's fine. No, you're guarding that. It does hurt. You're just trying to be tough. So a little bit on the right side, but not, it's fine on the left side. So I'm thinking it's probably the Quadratus Lumborum. And then what I do is I always pull up the app and I'll check that out, or I'll go into the exercise library and you guys got a plethora of great stuff. And I'll show us, if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll dive in there and show you some of the stuff that they have. But I think the security working with show up trainers is knowing that we have a great team. And we let our clients know that if I don't know, I know a lot, but if I don't know, I know where to go to find the issue. And I've worked with a lot of this stuff before. So I'm thinking, how can I implement some strategies that will help her? And unfortunately, something that she does where it really gets irritated is when she goes to a small group spot and she does a bunch of running. So she'll run for 23 minutes at Orange Theory, and she comes in and she's just wrecked.
Hmm.
And so it's tough because I'm thinking, my mind goes, all right, so the QL, correct if I'm wrong, originates lumbar L5 around there.
Yeah, the lumbar spine transverse process up to the 12th rib. Yeah.
And then it's going to insert last rib.
Down to the last rib down to the iliac crest. Yeah.
Working with extension, going to do contralateral stabilization, some breathing, lateral flexion.
Yep.
So now take me through the process of what do we want to do to
Yeah. Totally. So yeah, to hit on that point, I completely agree with your thought process. That's pretty spot on. That information is really helpful in terms of weaning out the diagnosis, because running is a good one actually, because the lumbar spine is fairly neutral. It shouldn't be moving too much. And if it's painful there, then it's likely either something extension sensitive because you're running in extension, or it's muscular. And then things like you said, plank with rotation. Okay, that means the plank itself is not that problematic, but the rotation piece is. And then there was the trap bar deadlift. So the spine should be fairly neutral up until the bottom position. Maybe there's some flexion, but coming back up is when extension is working. So like if it was discogenic, I would think that, flexion-based movements, sounds like she's a corporate worker, I would think sitting would bother her, which we're ruling out. If it's like a facet-based syndrome or some type of joint irritation of the low back, then usually it's positional, not so much based on load. So if she's standing or walking for a while, I would think that it's more of the joints, just because you're in that extension position for a much longer period of time. So just the position itself does not seem like a problem. Rather, it's the demand that's being placed on the low back area that creates irritation. Things like, those exercises specifically that she's complaining of. So I would definitely think it's more muscular in nature because of that, ruling the other things out. And it's when there's demand placed on that area. And on top of that, out of the muscular tissues, I would rule in QL significantly more than a lot of the other paraspinal muscles, because it's such a strong side bender that if it is like things like, hip dips or and it's such a strong extender as well, that when you're doing things like trap bar deadlifts on the way up, you're going to be able to use that muscle a good amount. And the QL is usually irritated because it's underused or overused. In this case, it's likely overused, because when she's running and all these exercises that demand it are irritating her. And actually running is a fairly common complaint, because you think that the pelvis is stable and it's not moving much, but it actually is moving a good amount, and you're having to use your QL a good amount every time you're taking a stride, much more than you would imagine. So that would be based on the information you provided, I would definitely think QL would be the area of irritation. So once I've kind of diagnosed that piece, it seems like it's more of an overuse thing with her. What I would focus on is the 3 phases of rehabbing this, come down to stretching it, isometrically working on it, and then isotonically working on it. Some people refer to it as mobilize, stabilize, and then strengthen. So these 3 pillars are what you want to progress through to make sure that you're back in a good position. You're not, you can, especially if the pain is not that bad, you can push through it, of course, but that's not the goal. The goal is to actually solve the problem and build up a really good foundation. So that way you can run a lot longer and for years on end without worrying about irritating this thing worse and worse. So, I would start, you want me to start with just some of the exercises I may throw in the mix?
Let's get in there in a second, because I'll pull up the app
Oh
and
yeah.
take a look at that. Now, I have an analogy. I always like telling you my analogies for my clients because you get a kick out of them. But I told her that it's like drinking. And right now, it's like you coming to me and saying that you can't drink alcohol because you're always going to black out. Like, that's a little extreme. So for her specifically, I said it's like you're having 3 bottles of wine and you're waking up the next day feeling like shit. We got to back it up and find out what your tolerance is. If it's a glass or 2 or 3, because right now we're not going to be able to determine exactly what it is because you're doing way too much. And then she said on the weekends it feels fine because she doesn't do anything. And then on Monday, she starts up her class again and she starts getting after it. So the tissue tolerance is just hasn't been really adapted. And the body is a beautiful organism. Right now, we got to just maybe take a couple steps back. I'm not saying take 2 weeks off. I'm saying maybe don't do that Orange Theory class. Maybe we jump rope instead because you're going to have bilateral and it's not going to be irritating it. And then we work on some mobilizing drills, some stabilizing drills that are going to build that tolerance. And then we would hopefully get to a point where it's not going to come back. Now, unfortunately, today, she's a rock star and she's listening to this right now and she's gonna laugh, but we can be a little stubborn in our processes and we want that quick fix. And I've given her some exercises before and it was too many exercises. And then also now we want to entertain maybe getting a cortisone shot. Now, what are your thoughts on that process? I'm always big into partners, and I'm not saying that don't work with physicians or qualified medical professionals, but a lot of times when you go to a doc, they're going to tell you to rest. They're going to tell you to stop stressing as much, and maybe we'll take an X-ray, and obviously nothing's going to come up on an X-ray. And then what if they were to entertain getting a cortisone shot? Is that even going to help with the recent evidence out there today?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't even get me started with the current healthcare system. But yeah, it's very focused on symptom management over anything else. And with this situation, I don't think a cortisone shot makes sense, especially given the information that if everything has been tried, like, reducing the load on the tissue, doing thorough rehab, and all that has not helped, which that's not the case at this point. Then at that point, then you're looking at getting an image and trying to further diagnose and see if there's anything else going on. But just to get a cortisone injection, so cortisone will help with the inflammation. And this is very local typically, but with this QL is a fairly large muscle, and it's not like a joint where you're going to put the cortisone injection into and calm everything down with some type of anti-inflammatory shot. It wouldn't be indicated, and actually, it's a big muscle, so I wouldn't be so worried about this. But cortisone injections for smaller tissues, like when people get into rotator cuff muscles, it does weaken the integrity of the tissue and increase risk of tearing. Maybe not off of one shot, but over time, if you like it, and then 6 months later you get another one, like, you got to be careful because that can weaken the integrity of the tissue, which can lead you to much bigger issues down the line. But for something like this, there's not going to be good research supporting any sort of cortisone injection for this. Very, very good candidate just for normal conservative care treatment.
His words, not mine. So make sure to listen to that one. I think it's also important to recognize that we're not diagnosing, we're not acting in that capacity by any means. And Arash hasn't had the chance to actually consult with her. This is just a hypothetical scenario here. And it's important to have those people on your team. So if you're listening to this and you have a client who has some issues, take it as an opportunity to reach out to a therapist in your area. Let them know you have a client and they're experiencing some symptoms and you'd love to take them out to coffee or lunch, dinner, whatever, and pick their brain, but offer to exchange services. And I'm always a big believer in paying for their time. You don't want to just come across as needy with your hand out. Gimme, gimme, gimme. I want. You can create really good relationships with therapists and even chiropractors, massage therapists. The bigger and better your team is, you're just going to separate yourself from the quote unquote saturated training market, where trainers today, unfortunately, are a jack of all shit because they don't have the team and they think that they're qualified, but they're not. And I went to, just to go off on a quick little tangent, but I went to a session here in Santa Monica just yesterday. And this client that I have, he's a big whale. He pays a lot of money per hour. And he's worked with 6 trainers. He's fired 4 of them. And the things that he fired them for were just stupid shit, not on time. And they wouldn't be flexible with their schedule. One was too militant, not doing exercise that he liked to do. And I said, you've been in LA for 10 years. I said, how many of the trainers have gone to a session with you at your therapy spot? He said, oh, not one. And so it's like, that's so unfortunate that, we could be working hand in hand. And I'm not saying that, as you probably attest to, Russ, that all therapists aren't the end all be all. There's therapists that are a little quacky, but it doesn't, in my experience, I'd take a therapist over a trainer any day because they have the extensive foundation in movement at least. Are there some great trainers out there? Sure. But why not just take a step back and build a better team? Whereas your shit right there, you're going through everything from faucets and whatever the hell you were saying, like, oh, that's your arena. Fix it. So you said mobilize, stabilize, send them to me. I will strengthen. And then that's going to be a better partnership because clients' interest is being looked out for the long run.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. And you create a team, and it's the scarcity mindset versus the abundance mindset. And I think for longevity, like that mindset is the only way that's going to survive.
Got a lot of work to do, a lot of people to help, but you're gonna move the needle a lot more efficiently when you link up with great people like yourself there, stud. So let me pull up. Damn it. Looks like the coach for the Chargers just got fired, but I need to go to your guys' app, Prehab guys. There we go. Let's pull this sucker up. My account. You're not going to get access to my stuff if you're watching this on YouTube. I got a special code, HUNK100, and you get it for free. So the cool thing about this is the exercise library. Now, well, we have it show up right now. Your guys' year plan, I think, is $199. Is that still current?
For the library, I think is 144. Yeah.
Sorry, for your app.
Yeah, app is one that's correct. Yeah.
App 199. This is 144. So together it's 350. If you shoot me a message on Instagram or email me at info@showupfitness.com, we can get you like a 25% discount on that, and you get access to both of them. And that only is for show up folk. So that's the part of the deal of listening to this podcast today. So send me over a message. And we've had so many cool stories with trainers. I can think of one specifically. Joe, I know you listen, but he signed up a client, a couple of $3,000-$4,000 because client had some knee issues right there, pulled up the app. It shows the client that you are involved in what's going on, and showed him some stuff within your guys' app. And the guy's like, this is exactly what I need, signed up. So you guys are making a huge difference. Ross, appreciate you guys for making this. And this is the exercise library, which is a little different than the app. And so I like this one as a trainer. I use them both all the time, but I tell my clients to get the app, but then for this, that's how I can search. I love that face by Craig right there. Something like isn't that great? So that's you can be more specific in the exercise library. So again, it's two different ones, and this is just a interface with the web, whereas the app is different and it's its own interface on your phone. So even if you type in QL, boom, take me through some of these exercises and what we were just chatting about.
Perfect. Yeah, totally. So like if going off of that point, for training, if there are injuries like low back issues and you wanted your client to go through something, it makes a lot of sense for the app to be the case. And I get that sometimes a person may not have the time to go to training a few times a week and go to physical therapy a couple times a week as well, which is why having something like that is such a great tool, because with 20-30 minutes a day, maybe a couple times a week, they can get that physical therapy access that they normally would have to go in person for. So that's that piece. Now with the exercise library, this is great because you can find exercises that are appropriate for your clients, whether it's a QL stretch that you're looking for, a QL strengthening, etc. You see Chris just typed in QL and there's a few things that pop up. This first one is actually a great YouTube video that kind of explains a bit more about the QL, why it's painful. I kind of break down into it can be underused or overused. In this case, we're talking about someone that has maybe an overutilized QL that we want to kind of calm down. So with the first phase of that rehab process, we talked about stretching. Now with stretching, pretty much all 5 of the following exercises are great stretches. There are ways that you can stabilize the pelvis. In an example, this seated QL stretch, you're sitting down, the pelvis is locked in. Now from here, what Mike is doing is he's side bending the opposite direction to open up the QL. And this is focusing on side bend because that's the primary role of the QL. But if you want to give that extra stretch, you start flexing the spine to address the extension component of what the QL does. And then you can also yeah, create parameters. So if you want them to do this exercise, every night before they go to bed, and, make sure that they keep that tissue mobilized, because at first you may need to have very high frequency for some of these mobilization exercises to maintain that motion. You can create a program. You put the parameters here, you save it as a template or save it as a program, and then you can email it out to your client from there.
That's
Very
what's so
easy to
cool.
utilize. Yeah.
Save that sucker over here, email it to them. And what that does is really shows you, especially in PT back in the day, they had their stick figures, but
Yeah, right.
now it's like, how cool is that? And this is, again, if you're looking at 6 exercises, doesn't sound like that much, but that's just specific to that. How many, to overall exercise? You guys have like 3,500 plus in here.
Yep. A lot. And you can search based on, certain movements like sagittal plane or frontal plane. So a lot of the stabilizing movements, like the isometric exercises, they're not going to be labeled QL, but they're going to be, if you go to like low back, you'll find a lot of, because you can search based on body part as well. Then you will be able to see all those exercises, which is the 4th tag there. But the tag itself, all the way on the left, you'll see all the different tags, but it makes it easy. So if you want to search back exercises, you can find those. And then isometrics will be things like a side plank hold, or, in her case, maybe just holding that squat position, to work on the spinal extenders for, a 30-second hold at a lighter weight. And there we go. Perfect. So we can address a lot of those exercises. I forgot that you can even look it up by muscle. That's even better.
Yep, that's why I love it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This 90-90 one is actually a very good one I found for the QL, because you're not only are you stabilizing it by being in this 90-90 position, the pelvis is locked in, you're flexing, and this rotation creates some side bend and really gets that pull in the QL. And it's dynamic, which I do like more of a dynamic mobilization technique than just static.
I don't know what it is about this location. This is just a really nice spot.
Yeah.
Where's this gym, huh? That's great. Look at that. You guys are
Yeah, what a
leaving
great
me
spot.
behind. You guys are so big that you guys got your own spot. Look at all these. I was just looking at some of these cool things you got there. It's like a lot of great extras. And the cool thing about them, they're doing really well, is because they're expanding their team. I really like seeing that. And you guys got some great hunkettes and some hunks on here. And so there's just literally so much that you can digest. I would prefer a trainer to be involved in a library where the information's quality versus the fuckery on Instagram or YouTube. Is like, you don't know what you're getting. You can have athlete X with a shirt off, all jacked, telling you to do something, but with this, it's specific to our clients, and that's why I love this. If you were to be proactive and you were to go through 5-6 exercises a day, you have a client today, they're 3 minutes late. Okay, so I'm going to go through here. I want to learn more about the peroneals, and we're going to take a look at some seated ankle exercises. And you type it and you watch this exercise. One of those are Arash and Mike. Well, you guys have some nasty ass feet on there. Whose is that?
Mike, I'm pretty sure.
Mike, feet. Come on, buddy. But it's like
I could tell with no leg hair.
okay. And so I really just appreciate the quality of the material that and you guys even have this back when you really started back. This must be like USC right here.
This was a different clinic this was even before the show up days that we had.
So highly suggest for you all to get not only the app, but the exercise library, because it just gives you the tools and the information's quality. You have to, as a trainer, have some, subconsciously some questioning in your mind, like, is this really going to work? Because it's not specific to your clients, but when you come in here, this is built by a therapist for your clients who are having problems with movement. And we only have so many success stories of trainers who do use this. And it just, again, it separates you from the average trainer. So check it out, get those. Any last words on that, Arash?
Yeah. I wanted to mention that, an exercise is, like I've had people come in and they've told me, these are the exercises that they're doing, and those may be the exercises that I actually want them to do. But then when I watch them execute that movement, it's not done properly. And I think that having someone learn the movement the way that you want them to do it is very important. And that's why with each exercise, we break down how you should do it, where you should feel it and common compensations with every single movement. That way, you know what to do, where it should be, where you should feel it, and then also the most common reasons that people do it wrong. That way they know these are the movements, these are the positions I should avoid when I'm doing this kind of exercise. So it helps you feel empowered as well as a trainer to make sure that all these, because there are so many different movements, and I'm sure a lot of these exercises may be new and different from typical training exercises. So making sure that you understand how it should be done is very important. And I want to just reiterate how crucial that piece is. And even in physical therapy school, we didn't get a ton of education on exercises, which is kind of crazy, because that is the most common utilized CPT code is therapeutic exercises. But learning that is something that I always push with for PTs as well, because just doing an exercise is not good enough. It's not like a pill. It's that where it's always the same. It's based on how you do it.
Yeah, exactly. And that the overall capacities where if you think a little is good, 10 times as much isn't necessarily better. It's finding that happy medium, that tolerance of that tissue. And so you're saying that from a exercise library standpoint, you didn't get a lot in PT school. And then from a strength side of it, not as much as well, right?
Definitely not much at all on a strength side, but from a therapeutic exercise standpoint, not as much. Like for how common therapeutic exercises are prescribed in rehab, it was not reflective of the education that we had in school. It was maybe 1 to 2 exercises, and we had a lot more than a lot of other PT schools. So USC did a good job, but a lot of programs, this is just the curriculum that's out there. It's very slow to change because 20, 30 years ago, exercise was not as commonly prescribed for rehab as it is now, but it just is very slow to adjust. And now there's starting to become a little increase in education there, but it's not near where it needs to be to maximize and create autonomous therapists post schooling.
So I got a couple last questions before we let you get off here, but I was talking to a therapist earlier and we were going over the cost in Canada for PT school. Are you familiar with how much it costs up there?
No, how much does it cost?
So they don't have a DPT program up there. They only have their masters. In 2 years, everything out the door Canadian, 26 grand.
Wow.
A little different in the States, huh? And that's what, I gave myself a pat on the back, and I'm not like being too braggadocious here, but when I went to your celebration for 1 million followers, I felt so out of place because, all these therapists, advanced degrees, I'm a fucking trainer over here. But I start chatting around with everyone, and it was so cool just the relationships you can build with therapists. But so many of them are almost to a certain extent envious and jealous of what I was doing because I had my own spot. And they're like, yeah, one day I want to be able to do that. I was like, fuck, like everyone puts, for the most part, a lot of trainers want to be therapists, which I find that very interesting because trainers systemically from a societal standpoint is not a respected career. I have so many trainers that will, after a while, I got to do something because I got to prove to my family or society it's an actual career. It can be. You just got to have that confidence. And there's so much opportunities for growth, but you need to be different than the average fucking trainer who's on Instagram showing their TNA and they're doing everything shirtless. Where if you're smart, you're educated, and you have streams of revenue, it can be a sustainable career. And so these therapists were talking about how they want to have something like this. And it was because it's hard to get away from these positions where you're getting a nice salary, but you don't have much skin in the game to go start up your own business because it's scary, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know how nice the salary is nowadays, but yeah, it's totally true. Like it is scary for people. That's why they don't take that leap of faith. But I want to hit on another point that you mentioned. It's like I know even surgeons that are envious of like what you have and what you've built and the lifestyle, at least that they think that you have, which I know it's not true because you're always focused and always working. But the idea of being able to control your schedule a little bit is always a nice thing. And a lot of these people don't because they went through an educational system that puts them through a healthcare system. And so they don't really have much autonomy at any point, whether it's schooling or in their current jobs. And this is also true for physical therapy, but with physical therapy, because it is part of the healthcare system largely, it's hard to break free of that. That's why most physicians don't also go down the entrepreneur route, but then you see someone like a chiropractor that oftentimes does, because they're not so included in the healthcare system. And yes, there are some insurance companies that do reimburse for chiropractic visits, but it's not that much to the point where it becomes a no-brainer for them to start their own practice. But for PTs, for the longest time, it was actually pretty good. Like the last, up until, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago, the reimbursements were decent, and there was no need to go out of the healthcare system, so it made sense to stay there. But now that the reimbursements are not that good and the salaries aren't that great relative to what they used to be, at least, it's starting to make more sense for PTs to be more entrepreneurial. However, like you said, it's a big risk, and no one wants to come out of school with $100, $200, $300,000 of debt, and then take a risk when that was supposed to be the risk that you took, was going through all that education to have a more stable job. So it's a little scary for people to do, especially because the delayed gratification is what the schooling was meant to be. But starting a business is also very much delayed gratification, because it takes at least a year to really build up and get to a point where you want it to be. But yeah, it's tough for people to try to take that risk in school. It's not like you learn a lot of entrepreneurial, ways to start a business, and it's very much about getting into the system that they're putting you through, which is kind of the same idea with why exercises are not so commonly prescribed or taught in PT school as well. But it's tough for people to do. They don't really know how to do it, but it is becoming a little more common than it was, let's say, 10 years ago. But a very, very small percentage of PTs actually even go that route. A lot of times, if they don't like the field or are not happy with their career, what they'll do is actually switch professions entirely. They don't think to start, or they think about it, but they don't take that leap to start their own business. And actually last year, CSM is like the big PT conference, was talking about how there were more PTs that left the profession than joined, which is not a good thing, because obviously there's going to be less available care in the US, but it's just something that is happening because of the nature of being unsatisfied with your position.
It's interesting. And that's, a whole nother conversation. I was going to ask you about, USC being one of the top schools out there. Do they teach you much about entrepreneurship or growing your own stuff?
Yeah, actually they did as well. Like there was a class that we had, and we would, create a business model with this class, but it's still one class, and it was, I think it was second year. It's hard because you take that class and you're so focused on being a good clinician, because that is the number one thing that you don't really. And I took it seriously because I do like business, but I know a lot of people that just did it as, just a project to do. But we got some of it. I wouldn't say that it was a lot, and it was at a very basic level from a very foundational standpoint, but there is no, real life understanding of how to market it, how to network around your area, how to build a community. These things are not discussed there.
And so that's the last question I have. And it's a loaded one because I don't know the answer or the solution, because I'll have trainers who are going through building their career capital. They've been here for a couple of years. People look at them as like, oh, you're a trainer. What do you want to do with the rest of your life? Because the industry portrays trainers as a bunch of idiots. Well, a lot of them are, but we don't have the best rep because we're doing a bunch of stupid ass exercises and we're very vacuous. And so if you take it as that, I get trainers who will ask me, I want to go and become a therapist. Which school should I go to? And I always tell them, I said, interview a couple of therapists first. I'm not saying don't go to PT school, but I like what I'm doing here. I'm not a therapist. I like knowing that I can, link up with the top therapists, and it makes my job easier. I do have that, like, I wasn't good enough to go to physical therapy school because I was a dumb fucker and I failed physics. And so it's always like that little monkey on my back. But if someone's asking me, I always say, go interview people, figure it out yourself. But I think you can make this into a career as a trainer if you want to. It's going to be hard, just like what you're doing now. It's not like you guys are like, oh, you're entrepreneurs, it's the best job in the world. Like, there's a lot of headaches, there's a lot of hurdles, and anything you do, if you put your mind to it, you can make it work. But what would your advice be for that trainer who wants to take that route?
Totally. I think it's very personal and it depends on why you want to get into that profession in the first place. I think like you mentioned the status of, oh, I'm going to go get a doctorate degree because this is the system and I want to build my status and, feel like I'm progressing towards something. I don't think that should be a factor in your decision because that really is not a good reason to pursue hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. However, if you figure out that you really want to do that because of the actual profession and what you're able to do compared to a trainer, that starts making a little more sense. I think interviewing people, like you're saying, Chris, is a great way to understand how the day-to-day looks, to understand if this is an investment that you want to make in your future. If you do think that is the route, I would even recommend being an aide and shadowing to see a hands like on a because it's such a big investment that you need to make sure that's the right route. But if it's purely from a financial perspective, I wouldn't do it. If it's purely from like a autonomous perspective, I don't think it makes more sense. I know more trainers that are making more money or are more entrepreneurial than therapists that are out there. I think that if you fundamentally like the idea of the job and you're interested in the career, that's the reason that makes the most sense. Because otherwise, the 3 years of time, all the prereqs that you need to take, the hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt that you're going to take on is not by itself justified. But I will admit it is a very rewarding field. I'm sure just as training is, because you're helping people achieve their goals and progress with their physical health. But yeah, it depends on your purpose, and your why will help guide that decision more than anything.
Love it. You're one smart fucker, and I love chatting with you guys. And pretty easy to find Prehab guys. You can find them on social media anywhere. And I always encourage you to find a mentor. And these guys are like my mentor. And thanks to our Rosh, we're going to be starting our own supplement company. That's to come later. And
No, we learned a lot from you too, Chris. It's a two-way street.
well, I appreciate you guys' time. And anything else you want to add in there?
No, I mean, continue to learn as much as you can. Like, no matter what your future looks like, it's very important that you're always self-improving, whether it's, from a understanding of the anatomy to understanding the business to understanding, the current market that we're in. These things are all important to understand, so that way you can be as successful as possible.
I always have a hard time pronouncing that one muscle. What's that one muscle called? Right there. Bam. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Remember, y'all, have a great day and keep showing up.